Okay, hi guys. So we're looking over how to complete our call to action for our research project. So the first thing, of course, I am going to list what disease I've been researching. This can be the scientific name and the common name for the disease that you have been looking at. You're going to then choose an audience that you're going to market your brochure or you market your media presentation to. Again, you do not need to just make a brochure. You can make anything. You can make a poster, you can make a video, you can make a PowerPoint, you can make a Prezi, you can make a website, whatever you want to do to provide your information. As long as all the information's there, you're going to have an audience. So for that, veterinarians, again, if that's your audience, you're going to utilize more scientific jargon or language, right? So you're going to make sure you're marketing to that clientele. You're going to be telling veterinarians things that they're responsible for. So if they need to be vaccinating, if they need to be the ones, let me change that font. So are they going to provide vaccinations at low to no cost? Are they going to be completing research? Do they need to stop everything and complete research? Do they need to donate a portion of their proceeds to research or organizations? Like those types of things, right? So that's going to be veterinarians. This is going to be some of the stuff I talk to them about. Common people, this is everybody. So common people are going to include people with or without pets. This is going to be, so maybe things of like, stop littering. I don't know if having a whole bunch of garbage somewhere is going to collect rodents, which then carry different diseases, which then make it more likely for animals to get stuff. So if that's going to be something that you want to talk about to the common people, so just keeping beaches clean, keeping areas clean, maybe you want to make sure that people, like if you hit a deer, call someone, I don't know, right? So they can pick up the carcass and then you don't have just random dead animals lying on the side of the road. That might be something that the common people to do. And just kind of basic how to interact with wildlife or even mosquitoes, right? Or potential parasites. This is going to be important with some of those diseases that are zoonotic. Now I'm still making sure that I focus primarily on the animal side of things, but if I have a zoonotic disease, I want to touch on both. I need to also be specific because if I'm looking at the CDC website for all of my information, well, the CDC is just giving you information on humans. It's not giving you information on the animals. So you need to double check and cross-reference that the information is true for both parties or that you're specifying, here's my animal information and here's my human information. Now, potential clients, these are people with pets, all right? So these are people that are that already have pets, that are going to be in a clinic, that are going to have animals. They may be livestock owners if they have that animal that is the disease that you're that's your animal that the disease affects. So potential clients, you want to talk about making sure possibly that they're having yearly checkups. Things else that I can say is like good hygiene, and not just good hygiene, but what does that look like, right? Monitor animal behavior and what is your animal getting into, any and all of those things, okay? So that's what we're talking about with potential clients. Government organizations, kind of nifty. Sky's the limits here. We got the CDC, you have Fish and Wildlife, you've got counties, you have just local municipalities. So what should towns do? Things of that nature. So these are gonna be, you can have areas spray for mosquitoes or ticks. Is that something that you want to have happen? Do you want to limit number of animals in a park? Something like that. You can also talk about catch, vaccinate, release programs. If the wildlife are carriers of your disease, then maybe you want to go in and you want to vaccinate all the coyotes, the bats, the raccoons, the skunks for rabies. And then maybe that's going to be your plan to mitigate that. So double check, like those are the types of things that you're thinking about as far as your call to action, right? Like this is what can those people do. Now, are those the limits? No, absolutely. There's a lot more ideas out there that you guys can have and that you will have because you're fairly creative on how to do that part. Other is going to be anybody else that you're feeling that you need to market to. Maybe you don't want to market to government organizations. Maybe you are actually going to market this straight to the president. So maybe this is going to be something that, you know what, President, you need to do this. This is what we need to do because we need to mitigate and minimize the amount of rabies that are out there. Or, you know what, we really need to stop ringworm. Ringworm's really bad in clinics or high capacity shelters. So this is what we got to do. We got to get rid of the high capacity shelters, and this is your plan for that. So other is really anybody. So just make sure that you are tailoring your presentation for those people. Again, so that's what you're doing when you're choosing an audience. Okay, next question. So why do you believe that the above mentioned party is going to take the lead role in the education and prevention of the disease that you've researched? So what am I looking for here? I'm looking for reasons. Okay, so you need to elaborate on your ideas. I just spelled reasons with an extra O. Boop, boop. You need to elaborate on on your reason why, right? So elaborate on your view of why that audience is the most important. This is going to be right, so I'm choosing these people above are going to have the most impact on preventing or mitigating or minimizing my disease. Okay, so what responsibility do they have? Why is it going to work for them? Okay, so why is it the most important? And how do they have the most impact? Okay, I think that kind of covers it, right? So if you just tell me, oh, well, veterinarians treat animals, that's not, no, right? Like I get that they treat animals, but why them? Why are they going to be the ones that can stop rabies? Why are they going to be the ones that are going to make a difference? Yeah. So that's really like why, like elaborate, give me multiple reasons. It can't just be like, oh, well, this is their job. No. Why is the president going to be the one? Well, the president has control, right? Like the president can make laws. The president has a voice. He can reach a whole bunch of people. Potential clients. Why is it important potential clients are the ones? Well, the potential clients, they're affecting the whole wide world, right? What they do matters. So there we go for the reasoning of why. All right, provide at least 2 treatments that have been most effective in managing the spread or contraction of your disease. Now, when we're talking treatments, if your disease does not have any treatment, so rabies is a great example. For humans, we can treat, or we at least treat bites. We don't necessarily treat rabies infections, but with animals, we don't. With animals, our treatment more often than not is just euthanasia, right? Or isolation to make sure that the animal doesn't have it. But if the animal does have it, there's no way to treat it. And there's no way to test if you have it unless you use brain tissue. And we can't get brain tissue from a live animal. So in this case, if there are no treatment options, or if treatment is too late, yeah, then you want to talk prevention. So if there's no treatment options, or if to treat it would be too late, my whole herd's going to be affected, one animal gets West Nile, then I want to talk about prevention. That's really going to be the focus, because prevention is going to be the thing that minimizes the spread. But there are certain diseases that it's hard to prevent because it's more difficult depending on what it is. So we want to be able to look at the treatment and then what the treatment's the best. So if looking at treatments, I'm going to research the efficacy Efficacy is the effectiveness. And you should have already done this because in part 2 it asks you to talk about treatment. So this should have already been done. And this is that compare and contrast of like, well, can you give antivirals and supportive care? If those are 2 treatments, those are going to be the ones that are most effective. But again, I also want to talk about prevention. What are we going to do? Okay, how are we going to prevent it? All right, so include data representations in the form of a table, chart, or media presentation from the research-based testing and supports claims in the above. This is where you guys are getting tripped up because you're seeing that word data, and in my head, data means table. But I also put out here media presentation. So media, these can be pictures that illustrate the life cycle of the parasite or disease, fungus, fungi, whatever you've got, right? So this is going to be anything that like you can find. So again, because some of us are going to find these really elaborate scientific tables and be like, oh my gosh, this table is amazing, but I have no idea what it says, Miss Leslie. What is an alpha beta 2 blockage in your, right? Like they're confusing. It's a lot of scientific jargon. So don't use that stuff because you don't know how to interpret it. You want to make sure that you can use information that you can actually interpret. Okay, so use information that you can actually interpret. It can be pictures, right? So it can be pictures. You need to be able to interpret it. It can be a graph. It can be a map of infected cases. It can be a compare and contrast of medication. So a lot of flea and tick. There's a lot of flea and tick posters out there. So maybe you have Frontline or you have Advantage or Revolution, which is the one that you're going to choose, which one is the one that's going to be best. You can use that image or that graphic in there. Google search. Your Google search is going to be data on, okay, and then if I look at an image, that's fine, but you need to actually read this source. So read the source website. Again, Google image and Google image is not your source. Okay, Google is not a source. Google is a search engine, so you need to pull up those things. All right, then when you've compared and contrast, you've looked at your treatment options, you're going to select which one's best. Again, make sure it makes sense. I'm not going to tell the president that he needs to pay, that he needs to go and get everybody a vaccine like to their door. That doesn't make sense. That's not going to work. Make it feasible. But sky's the limit. So maybe you want to talk about fundraising, okay? And that goes in your treatment. So which treatment's the best? Provide that why. So if there's only one way to treat, then there's only one way to treat, but then give me some backup of how effective is it? How many cases were there last year? How many cases are there this year? You should be able to find this because those are all diseases that they need to be reported on. So again, you can Google search how many diseases or how many cases of blank were there. Okay, so how many cases of blank. Okay. All right, and then last but not least, we're going to utilize the information above and part 1 and part 2 of your research to determine the approach. This is a detailed plan. Sky's the limit. Whatever you can think of is going to go here. So if money was not an option, talk about fundraising, talk about how you're going to raise funds for it, everything and anything to make sure that you mitigate and minimize this disease. So from the beginning to the end of care. And there we have it.